Welcome back to the deep dive. Today we're embarking on, well, a really challenging one. We're trying to slice through just decades of, cultural noise around arguably the most recognizable face of the 20th century.
And maybe the most misunderstood too, Marilyn Monroe.
Exactly, Marilyn Monroe.
Yeah, it's really essential work, I think, because the public story is just all surface, right?
Totally dominated by the glamour, the tragedy, the gossip.
Exactly. All glamour, tragedy, the gossip. Laurence Olivier even said it, didn't he? That the real story got completely lost in all the ballyhoo and sensation.
Right. Ballyhoo and sensation, that sums it up.
So our mission today really is to get past that myth, to actually try and understand the woman behind it all, Norma Jean Mortensen, and the very smart professional who built that Marilyn image.
But also fought the system, right? Fought to change it.
Absolutely. She battled the studio system, changed how stars negotiated power. It's a fascinating story of agency.
And before we dive into that complexity, let's just anchor ourselves with the sheer scale of her stardom. I mean, the numbers are staggering.
They really are.
By the time she died in 1962, and she was only 36, her films had grossed $200 million.
Which is just enormous for that era.
Huge. If you adjust that, it's something like, what, $2 billion in today's money?
Roughly.
Yeah.
We're talking about a massive financial powerhouse, a top-billed star for a solid decade.
It's incredible, and that business side often gets completely buried.
It does. It gets lost in the personal drama. So the big question for you, listening as we go through this, is this. We all know the icon, the bombshell image, but do we really know the backstory?
Do we know the girl who was a ward of the state? Who basically had to invent a whole new person just to escape that system?
Or the businesswoman who launched her own production company to get creative control, which was revolutionary back then.
Unheard of, practically. And the actress who seriously studied method acting went through years of psychoanalysis, trying so hard to be seen as more than just a pretty face.
Exactly. So let's unpack all of that. The survival, the ambition, the whole complex picture.
Okay, let's start right at the beginning then. The foundations of Norma Jean, from 1926 up to about 1943. And it's immediately obvious stability was just not part of the equation.
Not at all. She was born Norma Jean Mortensen, June 1st, 1926, in Los Angeles.
And that instability you mentioned, it sounds intense.
Oh, it was. She's spent most of her childhood bouncing between foster homes, often with quite strict evangelical Christian families, and she also spent time in an orphanage.
The Los Angeles Orphans Home, right?
Holly Grove.
That's the one, Holly Grove branch. But the biggest thing, really, was her mother, Gladys Pearl Baker.
What happened there?
Well, Gladys suffered a major mental breakdown in January 1934. She was diagnosed with paranoid schizophrenia and committed to Metropolitan State Hospital.
Oh, wow. So Norma Jean lost her mother, essentially.
Pretty much. Contact was minimal after that. Gladys was institutionalized for most of the rest of her life. It left Norma Jean a ward of the state. And being a ward of the state, moving around constantly, that must have had a huge psychological impact.
Absolutely. Sources talk about her developing a stutter around this time, becoming quite withdrawn. And there are also serious allegations, suggestions of sexual abuse during this period, possibly from lodgers or relatives.
Which could certainly connect to her later mental health struggle.
Many believe it did. Significantly, it was a deeply traumatic childhood. But what's really striking and kind of key to everything that follows is how she found an escape.
In the movies.
Yeah. She talked about hating the grim reality she lived in. So when her foster families wanted her out of the house, they'd just send her to the cinema.
Get her out from underfoot.
Basically. And she said she loved being that little kid all alone in the dark, just watching the screen. It was her sanctuary.
And that sanctuary became the goal.
It absolutely did. It became the thing she aimed for. Which brings us to her first marriage.
This was purely practical, wasn't it? A way out.
Completely. In 1942, she's nearly 16. Her guardian at the time, Doc Goddard, is moving out of state to West Virginia.
And child protection laws meant Norma Jean couldn't go.
Exactly. She couldn't legally be taken out of California. So the prospect looming was a return to the orphanage system.
Which she must have dreaded.
Desperately. So the solution presented to her was get married.
Get married at 16.
Just after her 16th birthday,
Yeah.
June 19th, 1942. She married the neighbor's son, James Doherty, a 21-year-old factory worker.
Just like that.
Just like that, it kept her out of state custody. But she was deeply unhappy. She famously said she was dying of boredom in the marriage. It wasn't love, it was survival.
But then World War II happens, and that changes everything again.
It does. Doherty joins the Merchant Marine and ships out to the Pacific in 1944. Norma Jean moves in with his parents.
And like so many women then, she goes to work for the war effort.
Right. She ends up at the radioplane company in Van Nuys. It's a munitions factory making drones, actually. And this is where it all pivots.
The famous photo op.
The famous photo op. Late 1944, an army photographer named David Conover comes to the factory. He's shooting pictures of women workers for morale boosting.
And he spots Norma Jean.
He spots her. Apparently, she stood out immediately. Photogenic, charismatic. And crucially, she saw the opportunity instantly.
This was her chance.
This is her way out of the factory, out of that life. She started modeling for Conover on the side, and then despite her husband being overseas, despite his mother disapproving,
She makes a break for it.
she quits the factory in January 1945, signs with the Blue Book Model Agency, and this is where the transformation really kicks into high gear.
The hair changes.
Oh yeah. She straightens her naturally curly brownish hair and dyes it platinum blonde. That iconic look starts here. And she was, by all accounts, incredibly driven.
The agency called her their most ambitious model.
They did. She worked relentlessly, mostly pin-up work at first, which was huge during the war. By early 1946, she'd been on 33 magazine covers.
33 covers in about a year.
Incredible, right? She was determined not to go back.
So that takes us into the next phase. Segment 2. From pinup to protege, roughly 1946 to 1952. She's got the look, the ambition, but pinup wasn't the end goal.
Not at all. She saw it as a stepping stone.
Yeah.
Film was always the target, and she hustled hard to get there.
Which leads to her first studio contract.
With 20th Century Fox, August 1946, an executive there, Ben Lyon, spots her potential. And this is where the name Marilyn Monroe comes from.
Lyon's idea.
He suggested Marilyn apparently reminded him of a Broadway star, Marilyn Miller. But the Monroe part, that was her choice. It was her mother's maiden name.
Interesting. Connecting to her mother, but also creating this new persona.
Exactly. It was about crafting an identity separate from Norma Jean Mortensen, the vulnerable girl.
Yeah.
And she solidified that break by divorcing Doherty in September 46.
He wasn't supportive of her career plans?
Not in the slightest. He wanted a housewife. So that was done. But the film career, it didn't exactly explode overnight.
No, those early contracts were short-lived, right? Bit parts.
Very short-lived. Fox dropped her after a year. She got a brief contract at Columbia, more bit parts, films like Dangerous Years, Scudda Hay, completely forgettable roles.
So she realized looks weren't enough.
She realized she needed more. And this is where you see her seriousness, countering that dumb blonde image people latched onto later. She enrolled in acting classes.
At the Actors Laboratory Theater.
Yes. And she said it was the first time she really engaged with real drama. Teachers initially found her super shy, insecure, but she was absolutely hooked on learning the craft.
And she wasn't just waiting for the phone to ring, she was networking.
Relentlessly. She understood the power game in Hollywood. Hanging around producers' offices, making connections, she became friendly with influential gossip columnists like Sidney Skolsky.
Who could help shape her image?
Precisely. And she attended industry parties, entertained important men. She was strategically making herself visible, building her network.
Which led her to Johnny Hyde.
A pivotal figure. Hyde was a powerful agent at the William Morris Agency. He saw her potential, became her mentor, her champion, eventually her lover too.
And he really fought for her.
Absolutely. He believed in her talent beyond the pinup image. And crucially, he secured her a solid 7-year contract back at Fox in December 1950. This gave her the stability she'd never had.
But he died shortly after, didn't he?
Tragically, yes, just days after finalizing the contract, but he'd laid the foundation for her breakthrough.
And even with the studio maybe still seeing her as just a sexy ornament,
Which they definitely did, casting her in light comedies like As Young as You Feel.
she started getting noticed in more serious films around 1950.
Yes. 2 key roles that year showed her dramatic potential, even in small parts. First, All About Eve.
The classic, with Bette Davis.
And Bette Davis, who is not known for praising newcomers, actually acknowledged Marilyn's ambition and talent on set. That's a huge endorsement.
And the other one.
John Huston's noir masterpiece, The Asphalt Jungle. She's only on screen for a few minutes, but she absolutely pops. Critics started taking notice. People saw she could genuinely act.
And the public was catching on too.
Definitely. Especially servicemen. Stars and Stripes named her Miss Cheesecake of 1951. And then the Hollywood Foreign Press called her the best young box office personality in 52. The momentum was building.
But she kept pushing for dramatic parts.
She did. Look at Clash by Night in 1952. She plays a working-class French cannery worker. Deliberately unglamorous costuming and makeup.
Trying to break the typecasting.
Exactly. And critics responded. The Hollywood Reporter said she deserves starring status. She was actively fighting the image the studio wanted to box her into.
Which sets the stage perfectly for the nude calendar scandal. That must have terrified the studio.
Oh, completely. March 1952, news breaks that she posed nude for a calendar back in 1949. She'd used the name Mona Monroe.
When she was broke and desperate, presumably.
Exactly. But in 52, she's becoming this big star, being marketed as wholesome but sexy. The studio execs panic. They thought this could kill her career.
Yeah.
Moral backlash,
But Marilyn turned it around.
She did. And it was apparently her idea, working with the publicity team. Instead of denying it or hiding, they went with total honesty.
Admit it, but frame it.
Precisely.
Yeah.
They put out the story. Yes, she did it. Why? Because she was flat broke, struggling to pay rent. It was survival.
And the public reaction.
It was incredible. Instead of outrage, she got sympathy. Massive waves of public sympathy. People saw her as relatable, human, a fighter.
So the scandal actually helped her.
Immensely. It generated huge interest in her films. It landed her top billing, got her a Life magazine cover story, the talk of Hollywood. It was a masterclass in PR jiu-jitsu.
And a lesson for her about controlling her own narrative.
A huge lesson. Transparency, vulnerability. When managed right, they could be powerful tools.
Which catapults her into that next level. Segment 3. The Golden Age icon, 1953 to 1955. This is where Marilyn Monroe, the global phenomenon, really emerges.
1953 is the watershed year. She goes from rising star to absolute top-tier, bankable movie icon.
Starting with Niagara.
Yes, the noir thriller. This film was specifically designed to showcase her as this overtly sexual femme fatale. It really established that trademark look, the pale skin, the dark brows, the bright red lips.
And it caused a stir, didn't it? Some groups protested.
It did. Some women's clubs called it immoral.
Right.
But the controversy just fueled the box office, and the marketing was genius.
The walk.
The walk, that legendary 30-second shot of her walking away, hips swaying. It became instantly famous. Gave her the nickname the girl with the horizontal walk.
And then comes Gentlemen Prefer Blonde.
The game changer. Co-starring Jane Russell. This is the film that absolutely cements the dumb blonde persona.
Even though she wasn't dumb at all.
Not remotely. But the character, Lorelei Lee, became synonymous with her. And her performance of Diamonds are a girl's best friend. Iconic. Just instantly legendary.
And this is where she really overtakes Betty Grable as Fox's main blonde star.
Absolutely. Grable was huge, but blondes positioned Monroe as the new queen. And then How to Marry a Millionaire sealed the deal.
Teaming her up with Grable and Lauren Bacall. Huge hit.
Massive hit. And technically important, too. It was only the second movie ever released in CinemaScope.
That widescreen format designed to compete with TV.
Exactly. And the fact that Fox put her, alongside Bacall and Grable, in only their second CinemaScope picture shows how central they saw her visual appeal being to this new technology. She was literally larger than life, the perfect spectacle for the widescreen.
But even as her star is exploding, she's still not fully in control. The Playboy thing happens around this time.
Yeah. December 1953, Hugh Hefner launches Playboy magazine, and he uses those 1949 nude calendar photos for the first cover and centerfold.
Without her permission.
Without her permission, without any payment. She was the image, the commodity, but she didn't own it, didn't control its use.
And that lack of control mirrored her contract situation, right? Despite being a huge moneymaker.
A top 10 box office star in 53 and 54.
She was still stuck on that relatively low-paying 1950 contract.
Yep. Studio head Darryl F. Zanuck, who personally disliked her, refused to renegotiate. He wouldn't pay her what she was clearly worth, and he kept trying to force her into these lightweight, dumb blonde roles she was desperate to move beyond.
So conflict was inevitable.
Absolutely brewing.
Yeah.
And the breaking point came in January 1954.
She refused a role.
She refused to make another musical comedy called The Girl in Pink Tights. She'd had enough. She wanted serious parts. Zanuck's response: immediate suspension.
He tried to strong-arm her.
Standard studio tactic back then. Suspend the star, cut off their income, force them back in line. But Marilyn didn't just roll over.
This is where Joe DiMaggio comes back into the picture. Sort of.
In a very strategic way. Just 2 weeks after being suspended, January 14th, 1954, she marries baseball legend Joe DiMaggio at San Francisco City Hall.
Huge news. Massive celebrity couple.
Biggest story in the world overnight. Completely overshadowed the negative press about her suspension. It was brilliant PR maneuvering.
And then the USO tour in Korea.
Another masterstroke. While technically still suspended, she flies to Korea, entertains the troops, sings for over 60,000 U.S. Marines over 4 days during their honeymoon, actually.
She comes back a hero.
A national sensation. The public adored her. Fox realized they couldn't win a PR war against her. Zanuck had to back down.
So they reached a compromise.
They do. The suspension is lifted. She gets a promise of a new contract eventually, a $100,000 bonus, and crucially, the lead role in the Billy Wilder comedy, The 7-Year Itch.
A temporary truce.
Very temporary, because she was already planning her next move for real independence.
But first, The 7-Year Itch. And that scene.
Ah, yes, 1955. The subway grade scene. While most of the film was shot on the Fox lot in Hollywood, they staged that specific moment on Lexington Avenue in Manhattan, purely for publicity.
And it worked. Thousands of people showed up.
Nearly 2,000 spectators, plus masses of press photographers. It created arguably the most famous movie image of the 20th century. Her white dress blowing up, instantly iconic.
But it had personal consequences.
Huge ones. DiMaggio was there watching the shoot. He was reportedly intensely jealous and controlling, and apparently there was physical abuse in the marriage. This public display of her sexuality just enraged him.
That was the breaking point for the marriage.
It seems to be the final straw. The contrast between the glamorous public spectacle and the private reality was stark. She filed for divorce just 9 months after they married.
Staggering. But professionally, she makes a huge move right after this.
The biggest move of her career. She leaves Hollywood, physically packs up and moves to Manhattan. And in late 1954, she partners with photographer Milton Green to form her own independent production company.
Marilyn Monroe Productions. MMP.
MMP. And you cannot overstate the significance of this. Sources call it instrumental in starting the breakdown of the old studio system.
Why was it so revolutionary?
Because stars, especially female stars, were basically employees. They could be suspended, loaned out, told what roles to take, what to wear. By forming MMP, Monroe declared she was no longer just an employee.
She said she was tired of the same old sex roles.
Exactly. And she claimed Fox had broken her contract by not delivering that promised bonus on time. So she declared herself a free agent and a producer. This challenged the entire legal framework of Hollywood employment.
She wasn't just asking for more money, she was demanding creative control, ownership.
Precisely. She wanted to be a partner, not just hired talent. Fox, of course, sued her immediately. It kicked off a year-long, very public legal battle.
And while that battle raged, what was she doing in New York?
Focusing entirely on becoming a better actress. This proves where her heart really was. She enrolled at the prestigious Actors Studio.
Studying method acting with Lee Strasberg.
Yes. She became incredibly dedicated to the method and very close to Lee and his wife, Paula Strasberg, who became her personal acting coach and confidant for the rest of her life.
And she started psychoanalysis, too.
Regularly.
Yeah.
She was committed to deep self-exploration and improving her craft, even while fighting this massive legal war with Fox.
And this is also when she gets involved with Arthur Miller.
Yes, her relationship with the playwright Arthur Miller intensified during this New York period, which added another layer of complexity and pressure.
Because Miller was controversial politically.
Hugely. He was under investigation by the House Un-American Activities Committee, HUAC, for alleged communist sympathies. The studio, government figures, they pressured Marilyn heavily to distance herself from him.
But she refused.
Absolutely refused. Her loyalty to Miller was unwavering, even though it led the FBI to open a file on her. Imagine that pressure, your studio, the government, all telling you to ditch the man you love. She stood firm.
Incredible strength. So how did the legal battle with Fox end?
By the end of 1955, Fox blinked. They needed her back. MMP couldn't finance big films alone, but Fox was losing money without its biggest star. They settled, and the contract she got was groundbreaking.
What were the terms?
A new 7-year deal. $400,000 for just 4 films, which was a huge sum then. But the real victory was control.
She got script approval, director approval.
Yes. The right to choose her projects, her directors, and even her cinematographers. Plus, the freedom to make one independent MMP film for every film she made for Fox.
That's unbelievable power for a star in the 50s, especially a female star.
Unprecedented.
Yeah.
It fundamentally shifted the power dynamic. Fox had to treat her as a producer, an equal partner. She had effectively won the war against Zanuck and the old system.
Which brings us nicely into segment 4, critical acclaim and the Miller years, 1956 to 1959. She's won the battle, she has the power. What does she do with it?
First thing, she makes the name official. February 1956, she legally changes her name from Norma Jean Doherty to Marilyn Monroe. cementing that professional identity.
And the press started seeing her differently.
They had to acknowledge her business smarts. Time magazine called her a shrewd businesswoman. Look magazine predicted her victory would be remembered as a case of the individual against the herd.
And her first film under the New Deal was Bus Stop.
Yes, 1956. It was a deliberate choice to showcase her acting range, a drama. She plays Cherie, a saloon singer with an Ozark accent.
She went for a non-glamorous look.
Consciously. Less makeup, simpler costumes. She worked hard on the accent and the characterization with Paula Strasberg. She wanted to prove herself.
How did the director react? Joshua Logan.
Logan was initially very skeptical. He doubted she could pull it off. But by the end of filming, he was a total convert. He actually compared her ability to blend comedy and tragedy to Charlie Chaplin.
High praise indeed.
The highest. And the critics agreed. The film was a critical and commercial success. The New York Times review basically said, okay, she did it. Marilyn Monroe has finally proved herself an actress.
She must have been thrilled. A Golden Globe nomination, too.
Huge validation for all that work at the Actors Studio. But even with this artistic triumph, the media narrative quickly shifted back to her personal life.
Her marriage to Arthur Miller.
June 1956. The press couldn't get over the perceived mismatch. The ultimate sex symbol marrying this serious intellectual playwright.
The famous egghead weds hourglass headline in Variety.
That summed up the simplistic, almost mocking tone. And her conversion to Judaism before the wedding also drew attention.
Which had weird international consequences. Egypt banned her films.
Bizarrely, yes, for a time. Because of the political climate and Miller's Jewish background, it highlighted how intertwined her image and her life were with global politics, whether she liked it or not.
So after Bus Stop, she turns to her own company, MMP, for its first production.
The Prince and the Showgirl, filmed in England in 1957, co-starring and directed by the legendary Sir Laurence Olivier.
Clash of the Titans, right. Method actress versus classical theater legend.
It was reportedly a battlefield. Olivier, steeped in classical technique, apparently just didn't understand or respect the method approach.
He told her, just be sexy.
That's the famous quote attributed to him. All you have to do is be sexy, which to Monroe, who had fought so hard for respect as an actress, was deeply insulting. She felt he just wanted her to mimic his wife Vivien Leigh's stage performance.
So she pushed back.
She did, by being difficult. Famously late, insecure, needing constant reassurance from Paula Strasberg, who Olivier couldn't stand having on set. Monroe later said, if you don't respect your artists, they can't work well. It was her form of protest.
But this was also a really tough time for her personally during filming.
Extremely tough. She suffered an ectopic pregnancy, then later a miscarriage, probably exacerbated by her endometriosis, a condition that caused her chronic pain and required surgeries.
And she had a barbiturate overdose during this period.
A brief hospitalization, yes. The stress was immense. The difficult production, the clash with Olivier, the devastating personal losses.
So Prince and the Showgirl wasn't a huge success.
Critically mixed, didn't do well at the U.S. box office, but she bounced back spectacularly.
With Some Like It Hot.
Arguably her greatest comedic performance. Billy Wilder directed, 1959 release. She took another dumb blonde role, Sugarcane, but this time she negotiated incredible terms.
10% of the profits, on top of her salary.
Unheard of for the time. It shows her negotiating power after the Fox victory. But the production itself, legendary for being difficult.
This is where the stories come from about her being impossible on set.
Exactly. Forgetting lines constantly, needing dozens and dozens of takes for simple dialogue, driving Wilder and her co-stars, Tony Curtis and Jack Lemmon, absolutely crazy.
Tony Curtis's famous line about kissing her.
Like kissing Hitler. Brutal, but it captures the frustration on set, the delays, the costs ballooning.
So why did Wilder put up with it? He was known for being tough.
Because when she finally delivered, it was magic. Wilder himself said that despite the chaos, despite her not knowing lines, she somehow brought this incredible vulnerability and charm to the screen. He called her a real artist for achieving that performance under those conditions.
And the result?
A masterpiece. Huge critical acclaim, massive box office success. It won her the Golden Globe for Best Actress in a Musical or Comedy. And it's consistently ranked as one of the greatest films ever made. An absolute triumph, born from chaos.
An incredible high point. Which makes the next phase, segment 5, covering 1960 to 1962, even more tragic as things start to unravel.
Yeah, the decline is steep and swift.
Yeah.
After the peak of Some Like It Hot, her next film, Let's Make Love in 1960, was a definite step down.
Weak script.
Very weak.
Yes.
She only did it to fulfill her Fox contract, apparently. Arthur Miller even tried to rewrite parts for her, but it didn't help much.
And she had an affair with her co-star, Yves Montand.
Yes, which added more personal turmoil. The film flopped, critically and commercially. One critic even commented on her appearance, calling her rather untidy. The strain was starting to show.
And then she missed out on a potentially career-changing role.
Huge missed opportunity. Truman Capote desperately wanted her for Holly Golightly in Breakfast at Tiffany's.
She would have been amazing.
Wouldn't she? But the producers were scared off. After the nightmare stories from Some Like It Hot and Let's Make Love, they feared she'd be too difficult, too unreliable. They went with Audrey Hepburn instead.
Wow. So that leads her to The Misfits.
Her last completed film, released in 1961, Arthur Miller wrote the screenplay specifically for her, aiming to give her that serious dramatic role she craved.
Co-starring Clark Gable and Montgomery Clift, heavyweights.
Legends.
Mm-hmm.
But the production, filmed in the grueling Nevada desert heat, was incredibly fraught.
Her marriage to Miller was ending right there on set.
Yes, it was completely falling apart. Miller had started a relationship with the on-set photographer, Inge Morath. The tension was unbearable.
And Marilyn resented the character Miller wrote for her.
She felt Rosalind was too close to her own vulnerabilities, yet somehow inferior to the male roles. She felt exposed and undervalued, and her health was deteriorating rapidly.
This is when her drug dependency really spiraled.
It got much worse. Filming actually had to be shut down for a week in August 1960 while she was hospitalized for detox.
Yet the director, John Huston, still praised her performance.
He did. Huston said when she acted, it wasn't pretense. It was the real thing. She would go deep down within herself and find it and bring it up into consciousness. Even in that state, the raw talent was undeniable.
But the film itself wasn't a success.
No, it failed at the box office and got mixed reviews at the time, though its reputation has grown since. For Marilyn, though, the experience was devastating, physically and emotionally. Gable died shortly after filming, which also hit her hard.
So after her divorce from Miller in early '61, she takes time off for her health.
Yes, she focuses on recovery. She had surgery for her endometriosis again, gallbladder surgery, and sought serious psychiatric help for depression. This led to a really traumatic incident.
At the Payne Whitney Clinic.
Payne Whitney Psychiatric Clinic in New York. She checked herself in voluntarily, but it went horribly wrong. They misinterpreted her situation, maybe didn't grasp the implications of her fame, and put her in a secure ward for patients with severe psychosis.
Oh my God, she felt trapped.
Completely trapped, locked in, stripped of control. She described it later as a terrifying, dehumanizing experience. A real trauma.
And Joe DiMaggio helped her.
He did. Once he found out what was happening, he immediately flew to New York, secured her release, and moved her to a more appropriate open ward at another hospital. It showed that deep, protective bond was still there.
Despite their turbulent past.
Yeah, their friendship endured in a way the public didn't really see. He remained fiercely protective of her.
So she comes back to California, buys her house in Brentwood.
That famous little hacienda-style house, her first real home she owned alone.
And tries to make a comeback with Something's Gotta Give.
1962, her final, unfinished film. But Fox seemed determined to push ahead despite her clearly fragile health. She had severe sinusitis, chronic depression.
But the studio pressured her, suggested she was faking.
They did, publicly. Relations were terrible. She was genuinely too ill to work for long stretches, missing weeks of filming. And then, in the midst of this, she takes a break from the set.
For the JFK birthday gala.
May 19th, 1962. Madison Square Garden. Sings Happy Birthday, Mr. President to John F. Kennedy.
In that dress.
The skin-tight, rhinestone-covered Jean-Louis dress that made her look almost nude under the spotlights. It was a sensation, huge publicity.
But it enraged Fox executives.
Absolutely. They saw it as her prioritizing this glamorous public appearance while their expensive production languished because of her absences.
And they used it as grounds to fire her.
That was the final pretext. Despite her actually filming a groundbreaking scene shortly after swimming nude in the pool, a first for a major star.
Which also generated massive publicity.
Right. But when she called in sick again, shortly after the birthday gala, Fox lowered the boom. June 1962, they fired her and sued her for $750,000 for breach of contract.
But the irony is the film couldn't continue without her.
Exactly. Her co-star, Dean Martin, had contractual approval over his leading lady. He refused to work with Lee Remick, who Fox hired as her replacement. Martin stood by Marilyn. Production halted completely.
So Fox had shot themselves in the foot.
Massively. They quickly realized firing their biggest global star was a disaster legally and financially. Negotiations quietly reopened. They offered her a new, even better, two-picture deal, starting with finishing Something's Gotta Give.
So she was actually about to make a comeback.
It looked that way. She was actively working to repair her image, doing interviews, photo shoots, including that famous final session with photographer Bert Stern for Vogue.
The Last Sitting. Poignant title now.
Tragically poignant. Because just weeks later, before any of this could happen, she was gone.
August 4th, 1962. Found dead in her Brentwood home. She was only 36.
Found by her housekeeper, Eunice Murray, and her psychiatrist, Dr. Ralph Greenson. The official cause of death was acute barbiturate poisoning.
An overdose.
A massive overdose, several times the lethal limit. The coroner ruled it a probable suicide, citing her documented history of depression, intense fears, mood swings, and previous overdose attempts.
The global reaction was just immense, wasn't it?
Unprecedented. Shock, grief, disbelief worldwide. Tragically, the suicide rate in Los Angeles reportedly doubled in the month after her death.
And DiMaggio organized the funeral.
He took complete control, kept it very small, very private. And he famously barred most of the Hollywood elite, including the Strasbergs. He blamed Hollywood, the studios, the pressure for her death.
A final act of protection.
An accusation. And of course, her death didn't end the story. It just fueled the myth machine even more.
The conspiracy theories started almost immediately.
Murder, accidental overdose, and involvements with the Kennedys. The speculation has never stopped. It got so persistent that the LA District Attorney actually conducted a review in 1982.
A threshold investigation.
Right. They re-examined all the evidence, interviewed people again. Their conclusion: no credible evidence of foul play whatsoever. The original finding of probable suicide stood.
Which brings us to the final part of our deep dive. The legacy. Deconstructing that incredible iconography. How did this image get built and what does it mean?
Well, initially, the image was very much a studio creation. 20th Century Fox deliberately molded her to appeal to the male gaze, positioning her as the new blonde bombshell after Betty Grable.
But she wasn't just a passive recipient of that image.
Absolutely not. That's crucial. She actively participated, learned the game, cultivating gossip columnists, carefully controlling which photos were released, learning how to work the camera. She co-authored the Marilyn persona.
And that persona relied heavily on those blonde stereotypes.
Yes, the performance was built around them. Supposed dumbness, a kind of wide-eyed naivete, overt sexual availability, and that famous, breathy, almost childish voice she used.
But she was always aware of the performance, the Monroeisms.
Oh, completely aware. She constantly played with the image, parodied it with these witty, sometimes risque, double entendre, like when asked what she wore for those 1949 nude photos.
I had the radio on.
Classic Monroe. That wit, that self-awareness, totally undercuts the dumb blonde idea. She knew exactly what she was doing.
Yet so many people bought the persona as reality.
That's the enduring confusion. Critics, audiences, they mistook the brilliant performance for the actual woman, Norma Jean. As critic Sarah Churchwell put it so well, the biggest myth is that she was dumb. The second is that she was fragile. The third is that she couldn't act.
Churchwell argues she was the opposite.
Very smart indeed, and very tough. You had to be tough to achieve what she did against that system.
It's almost like her acting was so good she convinced the world the character was real.
In a way, yes. She even slipped lines into scripts acknowledging it. Like in Gentlemen Prefer Blondes, she reportedly added the line, "I can be smart when it's important, but most men don't like it."
Wow. Talk about meta-commentary.
Right. She's telling you right there. But the image became so powerful, so tied to the post-war American identity.
How so? What did she represent?
She embodied this ideal of, well, accessible glamour.
Yeah.
Soft, seemingly needy, worshipful of men, sexually available but somehow innocent. This idea of Populux glamour that felt democratic, achievable with American cosmetics, nylons, and peroxide.
A kind of comfort figure in the Cold War era.
Some scholars argue that yes, a symbol of American abundance and sensual freedom that countered the era's anxieties. Her cultural status is undeniable.
Sixth greatest female screen legend, according to the AFI. One of the Smithsonian's 100 most significant Americans. She's embedded in our cultural DNA.
Truly. And her legacy remains debated, especially within feminism. Was she primarily a victim of the studio system, as Gloria Steinem argued?
Or was she, as others like Churchwell argue, a proactive agent who skillfully used the system, used that persona, to gain unprecedented power and freedom?
It's probably a complex mix of both, isn't it? Exploited and exploiter, victim and victor.
And one final layer that complicates the bombshell image, her politics.
Fascinating, right? This icon of glamour was a lifelong admirer of Abraham Lincoln, a registered Democrat.
And actively interested in civil rights.
Very much so. At a time when stars were expected to stay out of politics, she engaged. There's evidence she wrote to Robert F. Kennedy, then Attorney General, asking about the Justice Department's plans for the civil rights movement.
That really challenges the stereotype.
Completely. She was thinking about social justice, not just Hollywood premieres.
So as we wrap up this deep dive, it really comes back to that core dichotomy, doesn't it? The vulnerable Norma Jean versus the incredibly determined, shrewd Marilyn Monroe.
The woman who fought the system and won, yet seemed consumed by the pressures that came with that victory. The symbol of sexual liberation, who craved artistic respect.
And maybe she achieved that respect in a unique way. You mentioned Constance Collier, her acting teacher.
Yes, Collier had this brilliant insight. She said Marilyn wasn't a traditional actress, that her unique quality, this presence, this luminosity, this flickering intelligence, was too fragile for this stage.
It could only be captured by the camera.
Exactly. Collier compared it to a hummingbird in flight. Only a camera can freeze the poetry of it. She wasn't just being looked at. She was using the camera to reveal something profound and subtle.
So a final thought for you, the listener, to take away. Consider this. Those very roles she hated, the dumb blonde parts she fought so hard to escape, were they also the source of her power?
Did playing that part give her the fame, the financial clout, the cultural leverage she needed to build MMP, to demand control, to eventually choose roles like Bus Stop?
Or was the constant battle between the persona and the person, between Marilyn and Norma Jean, ultimately just too exhausting, too much for even that shrewd, tough businesswoman to sustain?
Something to think about.
Yeah.
The power and the prison of the image she created. You decide.